This is Talking My Walking. I am Rodrigo Ribeiro, just another voice in the wilderness. Today I'm going to talk about indoctrination, instrumentalization, tribalization, fanatization, psychosocial-cultural identity, and the pursuit of self-interest. One thing that is very important to understand about human beings is that the less we understand and the less conscious we are about the things, the processes, the systems, and the relations through which that establish a relation with us through the socio-cultural, economic, and political relations and ideological relations, the more vulnerable we are to them. The more so by not being aware doesn't mean that we are not affected. And by being, that's why my focus, because I think about the point of my reflections is basically how could we achieve. I'm not talking about how could we achieve a political, economic, and societal and cultural, for sure, societal system that is not free of ideology. Nothing is free of ideology, okay? But it would be a culture of true liberation, a culture that exactly by being rooted on the understanding of our socio-cultural, of the socio-cultural nature of the human condition, would allow us to build not only a culture, not only a socio-cultural system, but also an economic and political system that would make us more resilient to be manipulated, instrumentalized. Again, I want to emphasize, we cannot avoid, that's why it's very important to understand it and go to the roots. Human beings cannot avoid being indoctrinated, instrumentalized, and even tribalized. Okay, we cannot avoid that. It's part of our socio-cultural condition. Fanatization is possible to avoid. That's why it's very important to understand. It's very important to understand that we cannot be. We need to the psychosocial-cultural. How do we build? What is the process by which we build a psychosocial-cultural nature individually, as at the individual level, at the group level, and at the mass level also, as part of a larger identity process. How does it happen? And what does it have to do with how does the pursuit of self-interest, how does this individualistic, narcissistic, sociopathic system, it helps us to, doesn't help us to liberate us. That's exactly the opposite. It makes us more vulnerable to be victims of polarization, victims of atomization and tribalization and fanatization. And we need to understand that if we want to overcome the repetition of the same patterns. There is the same patterns that we are already seeing in Europe. They are being, in a different way, because as they say, history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. And that's exactly the point. That's the repetition of certain patterns. It's not history that is repeating itself, but the patterns are there, and they are exploited. Fear-mongering, dehumanization, demonization, scapegoating, to build compliance, to manufacture consent. We are divided. We are atomized. We are. It's like we do not really. We are unable to organize, to unite, unless through some sort of fanatization. And that's wrong also. It might be soft fanatism, or might be hard fanatism in certain cases, but that's not the way to go. We should never call ourselves, it's a problem of identity, okay? I identify myself as a Portuguese. I was born and raised in Portugal, so there are certain characteristics that I know that I have, I know that I identify with, which are not only language, but other aspects that make me a Portuguese. But it would never cross my mind. Before it, I could be weaponized. That's the same. That's exactly the part of the indoctrination and instrumentalization process by which identity principles, and narratives are used to instrumentalize us. And that kind of instrumentalization makes us vulnerable to be used as useful idiots and cannon fodder. So therefore we can talk about freedom and about this and about that, but in the end, once we are instrumentalized by systems of propaganda and weapons of mass deception to manufacture consent, we are going to be victims. We are going to be used, and we do believe, and that's the trick, and that's where the sociocultural, the need to understand the sociocultural nature of our condition, in order to understand how that works, how that is built in our cognitive affective systems. So therefore we talk, because then we talk about freedom and this and that. But we are not, as I always say, we do not, most of the time, since we are not trained to have an analyzed life in a continuous way, as a posture, as a way of life, as a way to search for meaning in life and to build that meaning through the training of our critical analysis, our ability to go through the BS, that barrier, that smoke screen that is between us and reality. This is not This has nothing to do with conspiracy theories. I mean, there are conspiracy theories and conspiracy facts and hypotheses, and conspiracies are part of the political and socio-cultural process. That is for sure. But this is how we so easily, because we have the wrong culture, because we have cultures that are that are designed to transform us into useful idiots through careerism, through the pursuit of self-interest. Okay, that's how we build our psychosocial-cultural identity as individuals, as also as part of groups of interest. Through this is a wrong form of socialization that divides us and makes us compare to each other according to a certain status, socioeconomic and sociocultural status, that creates this illusion. Not an illusion, okay? It's not an illusion, because it's really a reality where some of us, because supposedly, according to the myths of the meritocracy, you deserve more. You should. It is correct. It is right. It is morally right, morally acceptable, that you feel entitled to privileges and to think about yourself as superior, because this is very important to understand. And this is not only a racial, because this happens in every race and ethnic group across all continents. It is a universal problem. This is not a racial problem. This is not only about I do not deny the white supremacism, okay? But that's not only a problem. We will not understand that the roots of the problem if we think of if we frame it as only as a white supremacist problem. Okay? So this is I mean, we have this tendency to explain this, explain that. We have a problem. We have, for example, that we have a situation, and then we try to come up with what are the causes. But the causes need to be. I mean, we can also always, we explain everything through framing, through creating models, which every model, it's a frame, it is a lens, and of course that's what I'm doing as well. But the thing is, if we try to really if we train ourselves to have a more holistic and comprehensive approach of the problems, if we start to see the relations, the not only the causation or the correlation, but the relations, the interconnected, how things really come together as a psychosocial-cultural reality that lives, that is our very identity. That are the tools, the lenses through which understand ourselves, through which we understand the world, through which we build relations with each other. So this is just how we go to the really the roots of our very nature, in order to understand that how can we avoid how can we build a better immunity, a better cultural and socio-cultural ideological immunity to being used by others, usually by those that lack the basic traits of a social species that are fundamental for the survival of a social species, which are the ability to empathize and to be compassionate and to cooperate and reciprocate and trust. And when I talk about trust, that's where truth becomes important, honesty becomes important. You cannot have we cannot have trust without honesty. And what is honesty? Is being reliable, is not lying, is not using lies to manipulate others. And if we do not reward it, that's what we have. We have our very systems, our very social systems and civilization, this imperialistic civilizational paradigm rewards exactly secrecy, lies, manipulation, exploitation. It really will, and we and through that we live in this dream of the technological wonders, the technoscientism view of the world, this new theology, that we believe the more technological, the more advanced technologically advanced, and the more scientific based are our societies, the more the superior they are. No, we are not. It's not because science and technology science allows us to have better ideas, intellectual tools to understand reality, okay, and to understand ourselves. But it's not superior to a holistic understanding, which is not, the science doesn't provide it, okay. And it's not science that provides it. It has to be a culture. It has to be a specific socio-cultural and political and economic system that really is based on the comprehension, on the holistic comprehension of the roots of the nature of our socio-cultural condition. That's why I emphasize this, because I mean, this is at the because if we we need a universal in order to avoid, like I was saying about me being Portuguese. I feel myself at this moment in my life, okay. We have to go through a process, because life is a process, and you go through many layers. How many layers do we have to peel of the set? We live in a web of deceit. That's where we survive. That's where we are born and raised. And then do you think that we understand it? No, we are going to understand it in a slow process, to peel layer by layer, and to buy into deception, to so many deceptions, and half lies or half truths or whatever. And we have to, and this is going to happen for as long as we are alive. So we human beings do not achieve truth. We pursue truth. Truth is not a thing. Truth is a process. It's part of a relation. It's part of understanding. understanding the nature of us as human beings, but understanding how we, to perceive us as part of the web of life and understand culture as part of the web of nature. This is everything is interconnected. So how did I came to these conclusions? Let's put it this way: to this understanding. I came to it because it starts to unravel. The veil slowly goes away, and you start to understand that. When you look in worldwide, I'm not really. I have been in a few countries, and I've been in China in 2006, 2005, 2006, so 20 years ago, and I could see one thing that probably most Chinese don't maybe they see. I think some of them understand it. I could see the Americanization of the Chinese society. This is the power of deception, the power of political, cultural, and ideological manipulation through media, through the model, the consumerist model, through the pursuit of self-interest, through hedonism, through narcissism, through these patterns that they are there. It means that the Chinese lost their identity as a political, as an ethno-political, ethno-cultural group. Of course not. But the poison is there, and we need to understand this, as if we want to. What I'm trying to say is that we need a universal paradigm. I'm not talking about globalism and globalists and this. It's nothing. It's not about. It's nothing to do with globalization or with. We need an internationalist and universalist view of the human condition, because this is the only way to avoid, if we build that culture, we can avoid to be weaponized and fanaticized. That's the problem. That's what I was trying to say. It's not only about indoctrination, because we cannot escape indoctrination. You cannot escape instrumentalization. We cannot. We can. Maybe tribalization can be minimized. That's my point. And fanatization can be really avoided. Okay? And from the process of tribalization to fanatization is when things are going to get really bad. When it becomes, when you don't have anything else as reference, as part of your identity, as that specific paradigm. And the rest that is in front of you is perceived as something to eliminate. Okay? And this happens. And you know this because it's so this is, how can we avoid it? We can not only avoid it by trying to suppress it through violence. We will not be able to abolish Nazism, for example, which has or any other form of fundamentalism, of fanatism, unless we do understand why does it happen. And you can't think that, okay, this happens because of social, cultural, economic conditions and people, and this, which is true. All the available explanations are true. But how can we truly avoid those tendencies, those trends, okay? Those instruments which they become, how can we avoid those ideologies to be weaponized, to be used as the weapons, as moral values, the moral values and the principles and all the rest that goes with it, how can we avoid it to be weaponized, to instrumentalize us, or enough of us to become a problem? That's exactly where I try to explain why does it happen and why can we avoid it. But we can only avoid it, not we will never be able to avoid it if we only work at the level of national level, or even at regional level, or whatever. It needs to be. We need to build a culture. I mean, we need to really develop a culture of liberation, that we understand our universality, that it even is proved through is proved through science. You know, it's not. It's just that we. I mean, do we? For example, I'm going to give an example. Do people don't understand that if we could pick the Jewish babies, for example, since Zionism is a problem, it is a problem, okay, a huge problem, and Christian Zionism also. Just think about that. If you could pick the Jews babies, okay, at the maternity, and raise them in totally different families with a complete set of values, do you believe they will become Zionists? Why? If not, if you believe that most of them would not become Zionists, why is that? What does it have to do with the socio-cultural nature of our species? So why do they become fanatics? What happens? How can we avoid it? How can we prepare people? How can we raise children not by denying, not by in denial of the that indoctrination and instrumentalization is unavoidable, all right? That is if you try to understand human beings and think that they can be, that you are not indoctrinated, you are not instrumentalized or even tribalized. As I said, tribalization can be reduced to a minimum, and fanatization can be avoided. But that needs a specific cultural and ideological and political and socio-cultural and economic system, because this needs to go together. We cannot have, because we become we just live in permanent cognitive dissonance, because we have to live in different realities at the same time. We have to adapt. to a political economic system, or an economic system that demands from us certain behaviors. And then you have another layer that you have to. So we in these existing systems, or more specifically in these paradigms, imperialistic civilizational paradigm, which is a worldwide paradigm with differences between civilizations, but nevertheless, it's the world is the default paradigm. You need to. I mean, we do not. I mean, we need to understand it. That's how we are. That's how human beings. That's what we are, and we can only understand it through it. Because if we do not understand this as our reality, if we deny it, and if we think because of this individualistic, this exacerbated individualism, that we think that we are better than others, that we believe that the things that affect others, that influence and deceive others, they do not have any effect on us, because we somehow are different. We are not. What we are being is idiots. Okay? Useful idiots. By denying that we are constantly in our modern societies under different layers of propaganda, of this. It's a web of deceit. And of course, it influences us, it conditions us at the deepest level, because it's how it is meant to be, it's how it's meant to work. And then that's exactly the point. We form groups. So we have this socio-cultural identity, this psychosocial cultural socio-cultural identity, that we divide ourselves in groups. Okay, we become we have this diversity, and this pluralism, this ideological pluralism, and this cultural pluralism, and blah blah blah. But in fact, most of it is part of the process by which we the tribalization and the fanatization works as in favor of keeping the existing system, and keeping another problem, which the layer that is more important to me, it's that we keep reproducing the wrong perception of the very condition our as human beings, because in the end, how we perceive ourselves at the subconscious level, and that also at the conscious level, is that we are somehow inherently evil, and we cannot be we cannot that will always will surface. Okay, and this perception is so damaging. This is so bad for us to find solutions, for us to have a comprehensive understanding of the roots of the problems, and to come to grips with how can we really solve the problems? How can we overcome this enslavement, these cultural ideological traps which are psychological traps, and cognitive and affective traps that keep us repeating the same patterns, while we innovate, while we progress, okay, scientifically, and we go further and further in the techno-fix mentality, in the techno-fix fundamentalism and fanaticism. We believe that we are advancing as a humans, but we are not. It's exactly the reverse. We are not advancing as human beings because we are. The point is, we instead of walking towards our humanity, we are dehumanizing ourselves. We are keeping track of our humanity. This is obvious to me. I see it everywhere. And I'm not an authority in anything. I just try to reflect, to analyze the reality, to also engage in the self and analyze life of my own behavior, of my own thoughts and feelings, and understand where they come from, what are the sources of these functions when then I find them. That's how we train our self analysis, and that's how also we train our ability for critical analysis, by understanding everything as a process, as systems, and as relations. And this is, to me, I mean, this is how this needs to be. I mean, in my opinion, okay, this is an opinion, but I think it seems to me that it has some relevance, to be honest. That we need to engage more in this kind of conscious transformative process, which means that we train ourselves into giving more time, not only following experts, doing it. Remember that I always emphasize that we are human beings as a socio-cultural species. We are bits and pieces of other people's knowledge and experience. All right, but that doesn't mean that we should engage in perceiving others as authorities, as experts, as saviors, as leaders, as whatever, because they are nothing more than human beings, as you are, as I am. And once you start to perceive it like that, you start to put things in perspective. You don't need others to tell you who you are. You need others because they share their experience, they share their knowledge, but not to tell you. It's a sharing process. Is the process by which, at the individual level, evolve in the sense that our understanding of ourselves and reality is humanizing us, is making us have a better understanding of our relation, of our part of the web of life, and as culture as part of the web of nature. Not at war with everything, as our imperialistic civilization, this pyramid scheme that is required to justify the existence of exploitation, of manufactured scarcity, of class warfare, the more evil the society is. You can see that in America. They are at war with everything. It's always a war on this, a war on terror, a war on drugs, a war on poverty. That's not the war. The war is against you and me. They are at war against all of us. Because what they do is I'm not talking that it's only American, okay? That's, I said, it's not the problem, it's not only American or European. But they are the kind of the expression, the real thing, that this is the process by which, by being at war with everything, to exploit, to plunder, to kill, to commit genocide and ecocide. And that is a process of humanization. It doesn't matter how sophisticated, how cultivated and sophisticated you are. You are part of a process of humanization that this culture is as on us. And I honestly don't see, coming from most of the sciences, social sciences, humanities, art science and whatever, there are important things. I learn a lot from many people from a lot of different fields, okay? I do learn a lot. I don't deny it. I know it. I'm aware of it. What I can also perceive and understand at this compartmentalization, the specialization, the everyone seeking to have a Platz, to have a place on the pedestal, and especially people from the ivory towers, they think they have. We are supposed. Who are we? We are the plebeians, we are just the ones that know nothing. We need to be led. As Edouard Bernays and the earlier people that were the people that have Ivy League and others that have invented the public relations industry and that the work on propaganda. That's what the idea they have about us, about you and me, as ordinary citizens, is cattle to be led, and especially to the slaughter. Exactly, they do it willingly, and they tell you it's for your freedom and for your safety, and it's about your dignity and your whatever, and you do it and you engage in it, and you don't even understand why do you do it. Because if we do not really understand the very nature of the socio-cultural condition of our the very nature of our socio-cultural condition, we never get the point. We are going to miss it again and again and again, in spite of whatever sophisticated technological whatever. We are going to get fascism. We are going to get war, destruction, annihilation in a different form. Of course, that's what I said. That's what they say. Somebody said it. I don't remember who was it. War, story doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. Okay? So I'm going to end it on this note. I'm going to end it for today. Thanks for listening. I know that it is, I go all over, but everything is related. And you have to excuse, because, this is just, I'm here. I don't have a PowerPoint. I don't have it's nothing in here. It's just me and this mobile phone, all right? That's what it is. Okay, thanks for listening. I will be back soon.